I want to discuss three topics. First topic is, what is reverse innovation? Second, why is it so important now? And finally, what is it that multinationals must do in order to master reverse innovation? Let's look at the first question. What is reverse innovation? Think about the innovation paradigms inside companies like General Electric, Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, IBM, Cisco, Nestle, and others. Historically, multinationals innovated in rich countries like the US and sold those products in poor countries like India or China. Reverse innovation is doing exactly the opposite. It is about innovating in poor countries and bringing those products into rich countries. It is perfectly logical to see why a poor man would want a rich man's product. Rich man has a car, poor man wants a car. Rich man has a television set, poor man wants a television set. Why would a rich man want a poor man's product? That is the essence of reverse innovation. Let us look at some examples. Nestle, which is a consumer goods giant, is remaking itself as a health and wellness company. And the place where they're looking to innovate in health and wellness area is really emerging markets because of the size of the consumer base. They innovated a noodle under the brand name Maggi in India and Pakistan, which is a low-fat, whole wheat noodle, a very healthy food. It has not only created a huge market in emerging countries, but Maggi noodles is now sold and sold successfully in rich countries. Or take another example. Tata Motors, an Indian company, launched Tata Nano, the $2,000 car, the world's least expensive car. $2,000, just to show you the power of that innovation. $2,000, the cost of a DVD player in a BMW would be a lot more than $2,000. Tata Nano is targeted at the non-consumers of automobiles in India today, namely the two-wheeler population. Those of you who have gone to India, you see the entire family travels on a two-wheeler, husband and wife and 4 kids. Two-wheelers are priced at $1,500. You make an automobile for $2,000, you can migrate the two-wheeler population into four-wheeler population. Essentially, in emerging markets, you are converting non-consumers into consumers. That is why you have to do fundamental innovation. Tata Nano has currently been launched in India, and Tata Motors has every plan to bring that car into Europe in 2011 and bring Tata Nano into the US in 2012, thereby fundamentally transforming the global automobile business. Or take the example of General Electric. 5 years ago, GE pioneered an ultra-low-cost, portable ultrasound machine in China, which costs $15,000. Contrast that with the premium ultrasound machines that are sold in the US for $350,000. Why do you need a portable machine in China? Particularly 90% of China is in rural China. In rural China, you don't have hospitals, so you can't ask the patient to go to the hospital. The hospital has to come to the patient. That means the machine has to be portable. You can put it on your backpack and go to the remote villages. It has to be ultra cost because of customer affordability. By the way, the low-cost portable ultrasound machine, which was originally innovated for the Chinese market, is now creating market for General Electric all over the world, including the United States. In fact, the portable ultrasound machine today, 5 years later, is a $300 million global business for GE. Let me just describe one application of this in the US. Imagine there is an accident on a highway. An ambulance is going there. You can't put the big $350,000 machine in an ambulance, but you can put a portable ultrasound machine, which looks like a laptop computer, in an ambulance. This is the kind of new market innovations from poor countries can create in rich countries. I can give many such examples. You may wonder, how come reverse innovation has become such an important strategic priority for companies today? It is really because of the Great Recession. The 2008-2009 Great Recession has fundamentally reset this world. And one way it has reset the world is growth has shifted from developed countries to developing countries, from rich countries to poor countries. There was a time 15 years ago when General Electric used to prepare its global strategy. It used to have a strategy for the US, for Western Europe, and for Japan, and then a strategy for the rest of the world. Today, when GE prepares its global strategy, it has a strategy for the so-called BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and resource-rich countries like Middle East, Canada, Australia, and the rest of the world. And the rest of the world includes US, Western Europe, and Japan. That is the kind of fundamental change we are seeing. Multinationals have taken the total population in this world of 7 billion and divided them into two. There is 2 billion rich customers who can afford to buy the products we make in the US. And the 5 billion poor, we have left them to charity to take care of, government to take care of, NGOs to take care of. That's an outmoded thinking. We need to bring the 5 billion poor into the consumer base. And if you want to bring the 5 billion into the consumer base, they cannot consume the same products the 2 billion rich are consuming. Why? For a moment, think about the per capita income in India, a poor country. It's $800. Contrast that with the per capita income in the US of $50,000. There is no business model, no product that you created for middle America, where the mass market per capita income is $50,000. You can go and take it and adapt it and hope to capture middle India, where the mass market per capita income is $800. The only way the 5 billion poor will come into the consumer base is through fundamental innovation. If reverse innovation is such an important strategic priority, you may ask the question, what is it that the multinationals should do to master reverse innovation? I say there are 3 important principles. Principle number 1, you have to have a big dream for emerging markets. You cannot build a solid business in China unless you dream big for China. When I talk about dream, I am reminded of John F. Kennedy's statement in the early 60s, when he said, we will put a man on the moon and bring him back before the end of this decade. Think about why was this country so excited. Certainly when he said, bring him back, that added to the excitement. Unless you think big, you are not going to become big. Unless you aspire to become a great company, you're not going to become a great company. If you only have a mediocre goal for emerging markets, at best you'll become a mediocre company in emerging markets. So principle number 1, have a big dream for emerging markets. Principle number 2, you must make amplifying weak signals a core competence. Now, what do I mean by weak signals? Signals about the future are always extremely weak. That is because future is unknowable. In fact, in emerging market, much of it is unknowable. Take, for instance, the $2,000 car. The day Tata Motors thought of the $2,000 car, think about how many unknowns were there in that project. Nobody knew the size of the addressable market. Nobody knew at what price point the two-wheeler customer will convert into four-wheeler customer. We didn't know anything about the technology. We didn't know anything about manufacturing capability. We didn't know anything about the go-to market strategy. Everything about an emerging market innovation is unknown. That's what I mean by weak signal. When you are faced with weak signals in emerging markets, you have two choices. Choice number one, you can wait for the signals to become crystal clear before you act. I wish you could do that. Unfortunately, in real life, by the time the signals are clear, the game is over. The other option is to amplify weak signals yourself. Amplifying weak signals is about testing assumptions about the future. When you are testing assumptions, the golden rule companies like GE, PepsiCo, IBM, Cisco follow is spend a little, learn a lot. You don't want to spend a lot because there are a lot of assumptions to test. Keep the cost of failure cheap. Then you can fail more often. Failure is nothing more than converting assumptions into knowledge. Fail early, fail fast, fail cheap, so that you can galvanize behind a workable business model. Principle number one, have a big dream. Principle number two, make amplifying weak signals a core competence. Principle number three is you have to fundamentally change the center of gravity of your organization. By center of gravity, what I mean is you have to massively redeploy resources from rich countries to poor countries. You have to delegate a lot more power, and you have to localize the talent and the resources in these emerging markets. This is not easy for most multinationals who have grown up in rich countries. Indira Nooyi, the chief executive officer of PepsiCo, has done precisely this in the last 5 years. For PepsiCo, reverse innovation is a strategic priority. So what has she done? She has dramatically increased investments in emerging markets. She has stretched goals for countries like India and China. She has not only shifted resources to those countries, but also shifted decision-making power to those countries. And emerging market heads now report directly into Indira Nooyi. Earlier, they were reporting 2-3 layers below. Essentially, she has done a fundamental mindset shift. You see, historically, multinationals, when they approached emerging markets, they basically focused on a small segment of the customer base in those countries who looked similar to the customer base in the US or Western Europe or Japan. After all, there are always going to be a small segment of rich folks in poor countries, just like the way there is a small segment of poor folks in rich countries. So, historically, multinationals only dealt with 10% of the customer base in India who look similar to the customer base in the US. But the bulk of the opportunity is the 90% of Indians who are non-consumers of your products today. How are you going to convert them into consumers? This is the most significant opportunity for multinationals. Customers shifting from rich countries to poor countries will define the biggest vector of growth for multinationals in the next 20 years. See, the historical view of multinationals has been poor countries are too poor to do business. That is clearly an outmoded thinking. Some of the multinationals have come to realize that poor countries, or at least places where you can sell your products, that looks like an emerging view. But a leading edge view would be poor countries are really sources of innovation. The reason why Procter & Gamble, Nestle, PepsiCo should be in Africa is Africa is going to push Nestle, PepsiCo, P&G to the cutting edge of innovation. This is a fundamental mindset shift. Let me close with the following observation. Reverse innovation is not optional. It is oxygen. It is the very oxygen which is going to fuel future growth for multinationals in their home countries.